And just launched that. We had a team of 9 people down there a few weeks ago, so that's going well. But anyway, it's great to have Ricardo Villanueva Lomelí, president of the University of Guadalajara, which has how many students?
320,000.
320,000 students. How many students are at MIT? 10,000, 11, yeah, so. So he's a very important president of a university. So 30 times more important than MIT?
Not bigger, not more important.
Oh, okay. So Ricardo has a PhD in educational technology from the University of Salamanca in Spain. He did all kinds of interesting things, general coordinator of university services, head of the office of the mayor of the city of Guadalajara, the Minister of Planning, Administration, and Finance for the government of the state of Jalisco. I didn't know that. And Chancellor of Tonalá campus of UdeG. So you're interested in educational innovation and technology, urban planning and development. So, you know, I think right in line with our interests. So welcome, Ricardo.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Bueno, ¿ya todos tienen traductor?
Well, does everybody have a
Sí.
headset?
Bueno, pues muchas gracias.
Well, thank you very much.
Como 5 años fue la primera
About
vez
5
que yo
years ago was the first time
Boston,
that
todos los
I came to
ecosistemas,
Boston
tuvimos
and I
muchas
saw all of the
universidades.
ecosystems.
Y
We had a
debo
lot of
reconocer
universities
que la que
here,
más me impactó
and I
y el
should
ecosistema que más ha
acknowledge that the
influido
one that impacted me the
mi
most
rol
and that has
como
influenced me
dirigente
the most
universitario,
as my role as
sin duda es el
university
MIT, ¿no?
administrator,
Yo
without
vine
a doubt,
cuando era
was MIT.
rector del
I
Centro
was
Universitario de Tonalá
the president
y nos
of
trajo Carlos Iván a todo
the
el Consejo
center
de Rectores, él era el coordinador de internacionalización.
the coordinator
Y
of
hemos ido a muchos
internationalization
países,
brought me on,
Francia,
and we've gotten to know many
Londres, hemos visto
countries,
muchos ecosistemas de innovación.
France, London,
Y la
a
verdad
lot of
es que,
innovative
sin duda,
systems,
lo que
but
sucede
without
aquí
a
en el
doubt,
MIT es lo que
MIT
hasta hoy
and
más
everything that is happening
me
in
ha impactado y ha
MIT has
influenciado
really had a
en
great
cosas que debemos
impact
de
on
hacer.
me,
Y
has
por eso,
influenced me
para
a lot
nosotros,
to know
tener la
exactly how
relación
things
con,
should be. So it's
con
such a
el,
pleasure
con el
to
City
have a
Science,
good relationship
con el
with
Media Lab, ha sido
the
clave
Media
para
Lab
tener un caso
and with the City
que
Science
nos
Lab.
permita
I think that
vincularnos con estos
it is
ecosistemas de innovación y
allowing
es
us
una
to
gran
have this
apuesta para
link
nosotros de
with
aprender
this university
cómo podemos
ecosystem. And
ir
now we can
generando
learn
esos
how
ecosistemas de
we
innovación.
can
Y de eso se va a tratar
continue
un
to
poquito
generate this
lo que
type of
vamos a platicar el día de
ecosystem.
hoy.
And
La
that's
idea
actually
es
what we're going to talk about
también
today.
platicarles y
So the
compartirles
idea is to
la
talk to you
responsabilidad social
about
que
the
tiene una
social
universidad
responsibility that
masiva,
universities
una universidad
have,
de
especially
320,000
large
estudiantes, tiene
universities such as
una
mine,
responsabilidad
which has
mucho más allá de la
230,000
investigación
students. So it has to go
y
beyond
nos hace muy
merely
diferentes a la
research.
Universidad de Guadalajara
You know,
del
it's
MIT.
MIT is very
Desde
different from the
filosóficamente,
University of
hasta
Guadalajara,
nuestros
but
objetivos son sumamente
our
diferentes, pero
you know,
desde la primera vez
objectives
que
are
vine,
different. But ever since the
he
first time that I
tratado de
came,
buscar como
I
rector
have
de la universidad
tried
en
to
dónde está
find
nuestro
a
punto de
way, as the
encuentro
president of the
y dónde
university,
una
to
universidad
find
con
where we
320,000
can meet
estudiantes
that meeting
puede
point and
también
how
vincularse con
230,000
el
students
MIT
can also
para
have this
tratar de
link
hacer
with
la
MIT
transferencia de
so that they
tecnología y
could
el
try to
desarrollo
transfer
tecnológico
technology and have technological
que se hace
development,
aquí. Y es
just
desde
like
dos puntos
what we
diferentes
have
cómo
here. So
podríamos
from those
llegar a
two
hacer lo
different
mismo,
points,
encontrar
how
un punto de
we can
encuentro, ¿no?
achieve the same thing
Bueno,
and find that meeting
rápido,
point.
el caso de la Universidad de
So
Guadalajara para
quickly,
que
the
entendamos
case of the
un poquito
University of
nuestras
Guadalajara,
diferencias,
so that you can
que son
understand a few
algunas
of the
diferencias que
differences. I
tenemos,
think we
¿no?
do have several
Para empezar,
differences. The first
en la OCDE el 78%
is that
marca
78%
que de jóvenes en edad de estudiar educación superior
represent
puedan matricularse en una
those
universidad.
young
En
people
México
who can
estamos
actually
lejos de eso, solo el
apply to the
42.5% de
university.
los jóvenes
In
en edad
Mexico, only
escolar de los 18 a
42.5%
23 años
of
tiene
students
acceso
between
a la
18
educación
and
superior.
23 years old
Y en el
actually have
estado de
access to
Jalisco,
higher
que es en el
education.
estado donde
And
está la Universidad de
Jalisco, which is
Guadalajara,
the state in
estamos
which
por
the
debajo de la
University of
media
Guadalajara
nacional.
is
Es uno de los estados
actually
con más población de México
under
y
the
estamos
national
solo en el
average. We only
36.5%.
have
Entonces estamos muy
36.5% of
lejos
students
del
who have access
objetivo
to higher
de
education.
la
So
OCDE
very
y eso
far
es un
from
reto
the
de
objective
ampliar
of the
matrícula.
OECD.
Entonces,
So
si se les
that's
hace
one of our
grande
objectives, is
320,000
to
estudiantes, pues
improve
tendríamos que tener
the number of students. So
640,000
we should have
si quisiéramos llegar
640,000,
a
right?
las
Not
cifras de la OCDE.
230,000
Entonces,
in our university if we
somos
want to
grandes, somos
get to
pequeños,
that
bueno, dependiendo
objective.
de qué.
So
Para la OCDE somos
that's just
pequeños,
one of our
para la
objectives.
aspiración
For the OECD, we are a very small university when we look at the percentage of those students who are studying in the Jalisco classrooms. But for MIT, of course, it does seem like a large university. The University of Guadalajara is in the state of Jalisco, and we are a very unique university in Mexico. It has transformed a university network that has tried to go beyond the state. Actually, in Mexico, most of the universities are in the capital of the state, but we have 175 campuses, which I think is very important. We have upper secondary education campuses, 175 of them, so schools from in all the state. You know, not all of them are
estudiantes de media superior y 150,000 de educación superior.
You know, upper
Entonces,
secondary education. So there's like a little bit of both.
Son 18 centros
We have
universitarios,
18
digamos,
university
18 pequeñas
campuses,
universidades,
so 18 small
175
universities,
preparatorias,
175 high
y
schools,
son
also a virtual system, and 329,641 students that are enrolled. All of them wake up every morning and go to a university in Guadalajara. So this university has been around for 230 years, so over 200 years. But in the last 30 years, we've seen it grow more than in the previous 200 years. So in 3 decades, we have seen the university grow in a very significant manner. As you can see, in 1993, only 10% of Jalisco had a presence of the university, but now 90% has a presence of the university. So we have been able to reach beyond the capital. And this is based on the profile of the students, also the impact that we have had in the schools, and for the students to be able to access the schools. This is a socioeconomic problem, right? I know that here in the United States, you just move to another part of the country in order to study. But in Mexico, we don't have dorms. We don't have that idea of studying where you don't live. And so this is a very different organization than what you have here. Also, in the last 12 years, the university has grown by more than 100,000 students. So that is 10,000 new students every single year. So an MIT every single year, to put it that way. That is what we have been growing. And that is the rhythm with which we are growing. But some of the differences that we have seen that philosophically have given us different objectives is the fact that we have a public university, and the enrollment at the university should be $10 a semester because we charge $20 a year. So this is quite symbolic. It is 100% free, our system. And this means that 56% of our students belong to the first quintile of the lowest income. So this is $80 to $130 a month per capita. So that's the first quintile. So 56% of our students come from that first quintile. The second quintile, 22.6%, $130 to $187 a month is what they earn. So we also are addressing the most vulnerable populations, and we don't reject anybody with regard to their socioeconomic status. We have students in the fifth quintile, which are the ones with the highest income of the state. So we have a little bit of everything, but the majority of students do come from the first quintile. Another very important data point is that 60% of our students, our undergraduate students, will be the first generation of their family to study higher education, because remember, we grew the majority of our growth in the last 30 years. So their previous generations weren't able to study. So these recent graduates will be the first person to graduate in their family. And this is in the metropolitan area in the capital. But in the rest of the state, 80% of the undergraduate students that are graduating will be the first in their family to graduate. So what we're generating in society is that we want all members, all residents of Jalisco to have access. So we see that our institution has the most social mobility in all of Mexico because we're bringing education and higher education to a place that didn't have higher education before. So now we have better income, better salaries, better wages in the future. But it's only the beginning. It's only the first 3 decades that we're offering education to these people that haven't had the opportunity before. And just so you have an idea of our budget, this is another difference. We have 30 times more students, but we have 10 times less budget. So if we look at the budget, the University of Guadalajara has $822 million compared with UNAM, which is the national university. They have 300,000 students. We have 320, but they have 3 times the budget and 60,000 students less. And so we almost have the same number of enrollment of students enrolled, but we have a lower budget. We have only 30% of their budget. So with 30% of the budget, we have achieved all that we have achieved. So the budget is very different. But what is the same? So now we have to look at the similarities. So we have 329,000 students, MIT almost 12,000, but in graduate students, we are almost the same. MIT has 7,200 students and Guadalajara has 6,595. So this is where we have been able to work with what is happening in MIT. So our relationship between undergraduate and graduate students is 60%. So in the University of Guadalajara, only 2% of the graduate students, or they represent 2% of all students in comparison to the undergraduate, but it's very similar in MIT, the number of undergraduate and the number of graduate students. So this is where we need to start working together. This is when we need to, where we need to generate the conditions that are appropriate for this new innovative system, just like you do it here at MIT. This is where we want to learn from you, and this is where we want to be able to approach these 7,000 students and present this innovative system that MIT has and do it just as well as you. So that's why we're here. We're here to learn from you, and we want to do it like you do it. You have 5,000 students as undergraduate, and we have 320,000. But besides that, we are the same. So that's where we have to focus and forget about the differences. But we do have a lot of problems. We have 320,000 students that go to the classroom every single day. We have very little budget, but many of the students, many of our work, a lot of issues, a small budget, but we also have a lot of creativity, we have a lot of imagination, and we have to build these networks. And what we haven't done well in Latin America is to take advantage of that creativity, to take advantage of that talent that we have in order to generate and have this new innovative ecosystem. Because with that method, we can generate ideas and do that technology transfer. And now some data. In 2023, Mexico was the second country in the world with the greatest interest in memes. We were in the first place, but then about 3 months ago, Cuba passed us up. But Cubans who are here, don't worry, because we will recover the first place and we will be able to surpass Cuba in 2023. So Mexico, unfortunately, last year we lost that first place and now it's in second place, but it has always been the first country interested in memes. In Mexico, if there's a tragedy, 4 seconds later, there are memes circulating making fun of one another. We're capable of laughing at ourselves, at our own, disgrace. So we have this ability to create memes at an impressive speed. But we are also the third Latin American country with the largest number of influencers. So we do have the talent to do it. And we're also in the top 10 countries with the largest number of TikTok influencers. So this production of memes, of TikToks, and to be influencers on social media, we're doing well. So I have 320,000 students who have that potential, that creativity, that ingenuity, who do this every single day. And once I was Guillermo del Toro,
you really understand and have an extraordinary ability to look into shadows.
Said you really understand and have an extraordinary ability to look into the shadow side, into the darker side of human nature and fantasy and terror. But you also are a really joyful and loving person. So how do you find that balance?
And the answer was, I'm Mexican.
And his answer, well, I'm Mexican.
I'm Mexican. No one loves life more than we do in a way.
I'm Mexican. No one loves life more than we do in a way because we are so conscious about death. And that's true. In Mexico, we have this culture around death. We celebrate it. We acknowledge it. And so we have a very different idea of life. And that's why we have so many memes, that so much creativity. But I think that this is an important cornerstone of our reality, because this ability for making memes, if we can just transfer it to other areas like MIT, then we have a lot of growth to do in Mexico. We do these types of things. The simplicity with which we can resolve problems. Also comfort. We think of that as well. We're creative. Creative enough to design these types of things. And so, a car that doesn't work anymore, well, it can still be useful. Collaboration. This is very important also in an innovative system. So these women, I can assure you, if the both of them hadn't gone together, they wouldn't have been able to carry so much. So we're able to solve these problems, to collaborate, and we know how to work as a team in Mexico, in Latin America. We know how to protect ourselves and to confront adversity with creativity and teamwork. And let's not forget creativity. We can resolve any problem. We can fix a vehicle in this way. And I don't think that it's very different from what you're doing here at MIT in your labs. It's just in a different type of ecosystem. So that's already happening. And I have 320,000 students who are doing this every single day. And if not, look at what they do with their own university president. This was at a press conference that I did, and a student, Omar Castillo, said, "Hey, teacher Villanueva, you combed to the side, like you combed your hair to the side."
That's impossible, no? I cannot comb, no?
That's impossible because I cannot comb my hair to the side. But I saw that comment on social media that I have like a side comb, everyone laughing at me. And of course, I just published it on my social media because you have to laugh at yourself. These are students that are doing this immediately after they see you.
We shouldn't miss humor in difficult times.
And that's why I put the thing at the top. We shouldn't miss humor in difficult times because we were in the middle of the pandemic. This comment has come to me multiple times across my chat. So I decided to share for you to see that yesterday I did comb to the side. So that's my post, and it's actually the one that has gotten the most likes. It reached 380,000 people, and I became the university president that was the most popular, and all because of my side comb. So, there's a lack of respect for people in authority, and that's fine, but this has to do with creativity, with innovation. So I have students that know how to do this. But what we have to do is put them in an innovative ecosystem, and that's what we haven't done yet. So if we look at all of the innovative or most innovative countries, Switzerland, Sweden, London,
la innovación en los países.
And you can see that
No hay ningún latinoamericano.
innovation looks this way in all
Somos
of
los
those
que más
countries,
memes
but there are
producimos.
no Latin American
Pero no
countries, and we
tenemos un
produce the most
un
memes,
esquema de innovación
but we do
que nos
not have
permita
an
transformar
innovative
eso en
scheme
tecnología
with
y
which to
humanidad.
use that same technology
Y para
that we
mí,
use
eso es de
for
las
memes.
principales cosas
And
que
I
venía a
think that
platicar el día de
this
hoy
is
aquí.
one of the main
Lo
points
que
that I
nos
wanted to
falta a
talk about
nosotros, un
here.
reto para
What
mí,
we're
de una
lacking,
universidad- de ser
this
rector de una universidad de
challenge
320,000
for me
jóvenes,
as
es
the
que
president
tengo
of a
toda la
university of
creatividad, tengo toda
320,000
la
students,
imaginación,
we have
tengo
all
a
of the
todos los
creativity, all of the
influencers,
innovation,
pero no tengo un
all of the
sistema, un
influencers, but we don't
ecosistema de
have
innovación
that
como lo tiene el
innovative
MIT,
ecosystem like
permita
MIT
transformar
does
eso
that will
en
allow me to
tecnología y
transform
en
all of
beneficio
this
social.
into
Y eso
technology
es lo que
and
tenemos
social
que hacer
benefit.
juntos y
And that's what we
colaborar
have to do
juntos,
together. That's what we have to
instituciones como la
collaborate
nuestra, como la
for,
de ustedes.
and so that our
Entonces,
university can be
Una
like
de las
yours.
grandes preguntas que siempre me he hecho
And
es
one of the
que no debemos de
biggest
confrontar, y
questions that I
no
ask
creo
myself is,
que tengamos que pelear a la
I
tecnología
don't think
con
we
las
have to
humanidades.
fight
Pelear
humanity with technology. This hyper technology is, this fight against hyper technology is kind of like throwing stones at a machine. We can't do that. Human beings are willing to give their lives to think, to innovate. That's how we get to the moon. That's how we do many things. And we risk our own lives in order to have that freedom. People who are writers continue to write, even if it costs them their lives. And so to innovate technology is logical, and what public universities should do, like ours, which is what technology is telling us, is how to humanize more and balance the world more so that it won't be hyper technological, but that's not the risk. The risk isn't that it'll be hyper technological, but rather hyper human. It would be slower, and universities like mine are too slow. Technology is advancing at a high rate of speed, but the humans are not advancing at the same speed. And so we shouldn't stop the advancement of technology, but rather we should stimulate or promote the advancement of humans. So bureaucracy and the slow speed with which we develop curriculum or other, societal areas, we see that everything is going so slowly, but the technology is going so quickly, and that's where we have that difference. So I am self-critiquing myself. How can I be faster? How can I be more flexible? How can I have a faster speed with which I can, get on that technological train. So we have to humanize that train. And technology is thought to be at the service of humans, but we also have to think of it in the other way. So I think that's a huge challenge. So information speed, also AI disruption. We see that there's this crisis of humanities, and I think that that's a concern. So in 1945, humanity doubled its knowledge every 25 years. In 1975, every 12 years. So now with artificial intelligence, it could be in less than 24 hours. And that is a speed that is terrifying for a university such as mine that's so large. And another data point that I think is important is that Netflix spent 34 months to get to 1 million users. Twitter 24 months, Facebook 10 months, Instagram 2.5 months, ChatGPT 2 days to reach 1 million users. And that's the speed with which information is being moved. But that's not the speed with which universities are moving. And so that's a challenge that I need to always keep in mind as the university president. But also in the past, what is concerning is that a human being could live 4 generations as a professional, carpenter, a day laborer, 4 generations of families would be doing the same thing. But currently, young people change jobs 4 to 7 times before the age of 32 every year. And so the
cambian de
students who
4 a
graduate
7
my
veces
university will
de
change
empleo
4 to 7
antes
times
de los 32 años.
their
Entonces,
employment
la
before they
velocidad
reach the
con la
age
que
of
se está moviendo el
32.
mundo no es la
So
velocidad
the
con la que
speed with
estamos
which
pensando. Entonces,
people are
¿qué tiene
changing
que
as
hacer una
well is
universidad o
not
qué
the
debe
speed with
enseñar
which
una
we are
universidad
thinking. So
que
what
no
can a
sabe
university
a qué se
do?
va a
A
dedicar
university that
su
doesn't
egresado?
that
O
has
todavía peor,
students
que no existe
that
el
we don't know
empleo
what they're going
al que
to
se va a
do
dedicar
for a
su
living.
egresado. Entonces, la pregunta es qué tenemos que
So
enseñar
we
las
have to
universidades o cómo
teach
debemos enseñar
universities,
las universidades.
and we have to think about how
Entonces,
to teach universities.
Bueno, la inteligencia artificial, como decíamos,
Also, artificial
se mueve
intelligence, as I said,
rapidísimo,
is moving
pero también son
very
muy pocos los
fast.
jugadores que están haciendo esto.
But we also
O
see
sea,
that there are few
el
players
80%
who are
de estos
doing this. So
desarrollos vienen
80% of this
de
development
2 países nada
comes
más
from only 2
y de
countries
muy pocas empresas, de 5
and very
empresas.
few companies,
No
only
estamos
5.
las universidades jugando en la cancha
And
de la inteligencia
we're
artificial y
not
no estamos
playing
los entes públicos
on the same
siendo
field.
eficientes para ser parte de
And
este
I don't
cambio que
think
está
that
viviendo
public
la humanidad
universities
y creo
are
que deberíamos de ser
participating
parte, ¿no?
in this type
Y
of
por último, el tercer
fast
factor,
development,
la
and we should
crisis de
be a
las
part of it.
humanidades.
Also,
Bueno, en un
humanities
estudio
crises.
que veíamos en
In a
Estados
study that we
Unidos,
were looking at
mientras
in the United States,
las ciencias computacionales crecieron
computer sciences grew
132% su matrícula, las
132%.
humanidades decrecieron
Humanities
34%
reduced
su matrícula.
34%
Entonces, el crecimiento de las
enrollment.
ciencias computacionales
So,
crece muchísimo y el decrecimiento de
Enrollment
las
did
humanidades
grow
es evidente.
significantly in
Entonces,
computer
en
science,
países
but
como
decrease in
México,
humanities. So countries like Mexico,
según el Instituto Mexicano de la
according to
Competitividad,
the
alguien que estudia
Mexican
filosofía
Institute for
en México
Competitiveness,
va a tardar 49 años y medio
it'll be
594
49 and a
meses
half
en recuperar lo que
years, so
pagó de matrícula
594 months.
con el
It
salario
will
promedio.
take that
Entonces,
long
díganme quién levanta
for
la mano para estudiar filosofía.
a return of investment in
Pues no. Si vas a tardar 49
what you
años y medio en
paid for your
recuperar tu
university.
matrícula,
So
pues
it will
estudiar
take you that
filosofía
long
cada vez es
if you
menos
study
una opción.
philosophy or ethics,
no
so
me
it
imagino
becomes
un
less
mundo
of an
sin filosofía.
option. But I can't imagine
No
a
me
world
imagino un
without
mundo donde la
philosophy. I
filosofía
can't imagine a
se
world
mida
in
en el
which
lenguaje
philosophy
económico.
is measured
Necesitamos
in
filósofos.
economic terms.
Necesitamos
We need
filosofía,
philosophers. We
pero
need
diferente.
philosophy,
Yo
but
creo que en una
a
universidad como
different
la mía,
type. I
seguir
think a
teniendo solo
university such as
filosofía como un
mine
programa de estudio
is looking at
sin
philosophy just as a
es peligroso,
subject matter
porque la
without
filosofía como
looking
tal
at it
no da
as it
para
should
vivir
be, something that
económicamente.
you're
Pero la
developing.
filosofía la
We
necesitamos en
can't
todas
live
las
without
actividades de la
philosophy.
humanidad.
We need
Entonces,
philosophy in
uno de
every
los
single
cambios que estoy
activity
haciendo
of
en mi
our
universidad
lives, of our
es
humanity.
transversalizar las
So we have
humanidades.
to
Estamos haciendo una materia que se llama Problemas Globales 1 y 2,
look at
que espero que pronto se
global
apruebe y la
problems,
van a
which we
llevar
actually have a
todos los
class
estudiantes, no
specifically
importa
on
de qué carrera cursen.
uh,
Es una
global
materia que lo van
matters
a llevar los odontólogos,
that
los
everyone
médicos,
has to
los
take.
ingenieros
So
y los
those
filósofos.
focusing on
Entonces
medicine, on
necesitamos
philosophy,
filósofos que
on
sepan de tecnología
mathematics. So
y
of course
necesitamos
they will
ingenieros
know
con mucho sentido
of
ético.
technology, but we also need them to have
Para
the
eso
ethical
creo que la
aspect.
filosofía,
And
la
that's why
ética,
I
las
think
humanidades,
philosophy, ethics,
que tenemos que
humanities,
impactarla en
we need
todas las
to have,
actividades profesionales y
we
no
need to
solo
impact
hacer un
them in
programa
all
que tarda 50
areas
años en
and not
recuperar tu matrícula. Y
just
esa es una
something
de
that
las
you study
transformaciones
and
que
then you
estamos haciendo en
spend
la universidad.
594
Crear
months
por
trying
primera
to
vez una
pay
materia
off your loans.
que quien estudie en la
So
Universidad de
we need to
Guadalajara
have
debe de
somebody,
estudiar esa materia con sentido global,
we need
que son
all
los
students to
principales
be able to
problemas, con un
take
enfoque
these
humanístico
courses
y filosófico,
regardless of their
pensando en
majors.
solución de
So
problemas, y es una
we
materia
need to
que
be able to
que queremos que
promote
estén los mejores
philosophy so
maestros en
that
esa
people
materia,
can
con los
be
mejores
able
materiales
to
didácticos,
solve
y que
problems
tratemos de
regardless of
tener
their field of
ingenieros con
study.
mucha
So we
ética
can
y
have
con sentido
engineers with a lot of
filosófico y
ethics
filósofos que sepan de
and
tecnología, ¿no?
philosophers
Y
also
vamos
that
a
know a lot
intentar
about
eso.
technology. So we need to
Bueno, aquí
make that
están algunas
bridge.
carreras, no me detengo más. Filosofía
So
y
as
ética,
I said before,
594
some of
meses.
the
Esas son las peores
majors,
pagadas
physics,
y estas son las mejores pagadas,
these are
¿no?
the
Aquí.
highest paid and the
Entonces,
least paid.
esto es importante porque las
And this
universidades
is important
tomemos
because
decisiones de qué programas
universities
educativos
are
estamos
making
implementando y qué debemos
decisions
de hacer.
and we're
Pero esto
implementing
no
this
significaría,
decision,
bajo la
these
lógica
decisions, and
económica,
we
yo
have to
tengo que
look at
cerrar
this in order
filosofía.
to
No tiene sentido enseñar
do it
filosofía.
appropriately, because
No, pues
if
sí,
we
sí
see
tiene
that
sentido, nomás hay
there's a
que-
low
hay que
enrollment in
ver
philosophy, we don't want to
áreas,
just
cómo
close down
hacemos
the
eso.
department. We have to
Precisamente.
figure out a
Entonces,
new way to promote
Mientras, como vimos en Estados Unidos,
philosophy.
las carreras de STEM, las carreras
Also in the United
enfocadas a la
States,
ciencia, la
STEM
tecnología, la ingeniería y la matemática están
courses,
creciendo.
science,
En
technology,
México todavía
math,
no. En
they're
México
growing, but in
tenemos
Mexico, not yet. As you can see, we
1.415.000
have in Mexico
estudiantes en carreras STEM y tenemos
1,415,000 students in STEM
3.652.000
and
en el ámbito
3,652,000
económico y de las
in
humanidades.
economics and
Entonces,
humanities. studies. So in Latin America,
lo que necesitamos
I'm
son
sure
jóvenes que
the
quieran estudiar
numbers are
ingenierías.
similar.
En un estudio que hice cuando era
A
rector de
young
Tonalá,
person is
en
more
las
likely to study
preparatorias,
engineering.
10 preparatorias que eran las que
In
más alumnos
10
mandaban
of
al
the
centro
high
universitario,
schools that sent the
pregunté qué
most
querían
students
estudiar
to
los
the
jóvenes.
university,
El
they asked
50%
young people
quería
what they
estudiar
wanted to
derecho.
study. 30% wanted to study
Y nadie
law,
quiere estudiar ingenierías.
and then
Entonces,
nobody wanted to study
tenemos que
engineering.
transformar hasta la
So we have
didáctica de
to
las matemáticas y de la
transform
física
that
y de todo en la primaria para que no sea tan
teaching of
traumático en el
math, of
sistema escolar
engineering, of
básico
science,
y que
so
los
that it's not
jóvenes
so
mexicanos puedan
traumatic
estudiar
in
esto.
high
Entonces,
school and
mientras
for people to
en Estados
want to
Unidos las
study
humanidades
this
bajaron
at the
su matrícula,
university.
en México al revés.
You
Nos
know, in the
cuesta
United
trabajo
States,
crecer la matrícula en áreas
it's
STEM.
easy to
Entonces,
grow
nuestros
STEM
problemas,
areas
nuestro
and
mercado es
enrollment in
diferente y
STEM, but
nuestras
in Mexico, it's
inquietudes
very
son
difficult to
diferentes
grow.
y sobre
So
todo
our
eso.
concerns are different than in your country,
Por
but we have
último,
to work on
bueno,
that. And lastly,
las dos grandes preguntas que me hago
the two
es
biggest questions that I
¿qué
ask
tipo de
myself is,
estudiantes
what
estamos
kind of
educando?
students are we
Yo estoy
educating?
educando
And I'm
estudiantes de los más
educating
bajos ingresos,
students that are from the
estudiantes
lowest
con
income
condiciones
brackets,
socioeconómicas muy
students who are
complicadas,
in socioeconomic
y eso me
positions that are
obliga a, como
incredibly
rector de la universidad,
difficult. And
pensar
that
que no
leads
solo
us to
formo
think that
profesionistas, que
I'm
también
not
tengo la responsabilidad
only
social de
creating
formar seres humanos en toda la extensión
professionals,
de la
but
palabra,
human
porque la
beings in
universidad
every
está siendo un
way
motor de
possible,
movilidad social
because we
y
see that there's
cultural
social
mucho más
mobility,
allá de
cultural
solo pensar
mobility
en
that
formar un
goes
profesionista.
further than
No, nosotros
just
es más importante que un joven esté
creating
en
a
las aulas
professional.
que en la
It's
calle.
important for students to be in the
Tenemos que
classroom and
pensar
not on the
en el
streets.
tipo de perfil
And so we
de ingreso
have
que
to
tenemos,
think
tenemos que
about
pensar
that
en eso.
profile of
Pero también en
their
nuestras
income,
aulas
of all of that.
tenemos jóvenes
But in the classroom, we also
que
have young
después de
people
estudiar con
who,
nosotros se han
after
venido y hoy
studying
son alumnos del
with
MIT
us,
y son grandes talentos
come to
que
MIT and
van
they
a
have
seguir
huge
creciendo, ¿no?
talent and they'll continue to grow.
¿Y qué debemos de enseñar
And
a
what
los
should
estudiantes si no sabemos a
universities
qué
be
se van a
teaching their
dedicar?
students
Nuestros egresados, hasta hoy la única respuesta que
without the
encuentro
certainty of what
es
they'll
que
be
la
doing
Universidad
after
de Guadalajara debe estar
graduation?
abierta
And the
para
University of
toda la vida.
Guadalajara should be open for
Cuando ese
your
joven que
whole
egresó de nuestras
life.
aulas
So
sepa
you're a young person,
o se
you
invente el
graduated
empleo al que
our
se va a dedicar,
university, but you should
la universidad debe
know
seguir
that the
abierta para que él
university is
regrese
always
y la
open
universidad
for
debe estar
you. You
preparada
can always
para
come
enseñar las
back. You can
competencias que
always
necesita.
learn
Pensar
more
en una universidad donde vas
depending on
5
what
años y
training
no te
you
vuelvo a
need.
ver en toda
So
la vida,
if you,
es una
after
universidad
5
ya
years,
incomprensible
graduate
en el
and then I
futuro.
never see you
La
again,
UdeG se
then
tiene
I
que
feel that the
preparar para
university
que un
isn't looking
estudiante a los
towards the
32
future.
años,
The
después de que
university
cambió
has
7
to
veces de empleo,
see
pueda
that in
regresar a la
32
universidad
years, a student
a
is going to
volver a
change their job
capacitarse. Yo estudié
5,
Derecho
7 times. So that person should be able to
hace
come
20
back.
años.
I studied
El
law
sistema de
20 years
justicia de
ago, and
México
the
cambió
justice
totalmente
system
y
in
nos
Mexico
hicimos un sistema
changed
de justicia adversarial oral.
completely. So now it's
Antes
an
era
oral
escrito.
adversary system.
Cambiaron todas las
Before it was
competencias
written.
que se
And
requieren
so
para un
all of the
abogado.
competencies, all of the
Cambió todo el
skills that a
sistema
lawyer
judicial
needed
mexicano.
changed
Y la Universidad de
entirely. The
Guadalajara
entire
nunca me ha vuelto a
Mexican system
invitar
changed. And the University of
a
Guadalajara
actualizarme
has never
lo que ella
invited
misma
me
me
to
enseñó.
come back and study
La universidad
the current
de la
system.
incertidumbre debe ser una
So
universidad abierta para toda la vida.
this
No me imagino
university
otra.
that is
Y
teaching
bueno, termino
students
con
in a
esto.
situation of
Yo creo que
uncertainty
nos
should be
falta
open
método en
for their
Latinoamérica.
whole life.
Tenemos creatividad,
And
tenemos talento,
in Latin America,
tenemos
we
muchos
have
memes,
this talent, we have this
pero no
Latin,
tenemos
this
el método
creativity, these
ni los
memes,
ecosistemas de innovación para que eso se
but
transfiera en
we don't
tecnología.
have the innovative
Ayer en la
ecosystem
noche
necessary to
me puse
transfer
a
it to
preguntarle a
technology.
ChatGPT para
Last night, I
responder
started to
moderno mi
ask
hipótesis y eso me arrojó
ChatGPT
ayer
a
en la
question
noche.
for my
Le pregunté,
hypothesis. And last night, I
what's
asked it,
more important,
what is
creativity
more important,
or the method?
creativity or the method?
Y lo que me contestó el
And the
ChatGPT
answer was,
tanto la creatividad como el método
well,
son
creativity and the
fundamentales en
method
diferentes
are
ámbitos de la vida.
fundamental in different
En
aspects
algunas
of life.
situaciones
In
la
some
creatividad puede
situations,
ser más
creativity
importante,
could be more important,
mientras que en otras
while
el
in
método
other
puede ser el factor
situations,
clave.
the
Por lo
method could
tanto,
be the
no se
key
puede
factor.
afirmar cuál sea
Therefore,
más importante
we
que la
cannot
otra de manera
affirm
general.
which one would be
La creatividad
more
es
important in
esencial para
general.
generar ideas
Creativity
nuevas y
is essential
originales,
to
para
generate
resolver
new
problemas
ideas
de
and
manera
original
innovadora
ideas to
y
solve
para crear
problems
contenido
within an
atractivo y
innovative
memorable.
way and to
Sin
create
embargo, la
attractive
creatividad por sí
content and
sola
memorable
no es
content.
suficiente
But
si no tiene un
creativity alone
proceso
is not efficient
estructurado
unless you
que
have a
permita llevar las
structured
ideas a
process
la
that will
acción
allow you to
para lograr resultados concretos.
bring
Por
ideas
otro
into
lado, el
action
método facilita
and
la
reach
organización de trabajo,
concrete
permite
results.
planificar los
Also,
procesos,
methods
optimiza los
facilitate the
recursos
organization of
disponibles
the work,
y asegura el
it
cumplimiento de
plans
objetivos. Pero
processes,
si se sigue un proceso
and it
rígido y
optimizes
estructurado sin considerar
available
nuevas ideas o
resources.
enfoques, se puede dejar de lado la
But
innovación
with this process, with
En
this rigid
conclusión,
and structured process,
la
we
creatividad
cannot
y el método
have
son
new ideas unless you have
complementarios, y
creativity and
ambos son
innovation.
importantes,
So
pero su
creativity
relevancia
and
dependerá del
method are
contexto
both
y del
complementary,
objetivo
are
a
both
alcanzar.
important,
René
but
Descartes habló del método
its
desde
relevance depends on the
1767,
context
desde 1767,
of the objective that you are
ChatGPT ayer
trying
me dio
to
esta
reach.
respuesta,
And so that was
pues yo lo que creo es
ChatGPT
que el MIT y la Universidad de Guadalajara tenemos
2023. That was
distintos
the answer it
contextos,
gave me.
tenemos
And I think that an
distintos
MIT and the
objetivos,
University of
pero ambos
Guadalajara have
podemos
different
innovar y hacerlo juntos.
areas,
Muchísimas
different
gracias.
aspects, but together we can both use method and creativity. Thank you very much.
Bueno, ahora sí, dudas.
Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? I know I have a couple. Oh, great.
¿Cómo llegarías a los 300,000 que
How would
faltan?
you
¿Qué hacen
get
falta?
to
¿Qué
the
estrategias están en la universidad?
300,000 that are left?
Son muchos.
You know, what
Son muchos, sí,
strategy? Well,
y
there,
tenemos que
it's a
llegar,
lot, right? And
definitivamente
we have
no
to
podemos dejar a nadie atrás,
get there
¿no?
because we can't leave
Eh,
any person
Sí creo que
behind.
tenemos que
But I
encontrar
do think that we have to find
y discernir quiénes son
and
los
to
que más
discern
inquietudes tienen para llegar
who
al
has
ecosistema de innovación
the
como es el
most
MIT.
concern to
Pero
get to this
también
ecosystem
el Fab
like
Lab que
MIT
inició
has it.
aquí,
But also
en el Media Lab, en la Universidad de Guadalajara debemos de
the
tener ya cerca
Fab
de
Lab
50,
that the
¿no?
Media
O
Lab
sea,
here has, I think that we have
nosotros
to
todo lo tenemos que pensar en
get
grande.
to 50
Ustedes tienen aquí un
at
Fab
the
Lab,
University of
nosotros tenemos que tener
Guadalajara.
50
Here
y
we
nos
have
faltan 124
one
para
Fab
llegar a
Lab,
todas las
but I
preparatoриas,
need
¿no?
50 in the
Tenemos que hacer
university
cosas como
back
esas, ¿no?
home,
Tenemos que
plus those that
masificar
I'm going to
y
promote in the
tratar
high
de
school.
que
So we
estas
have to
herramientas que
diversify.
han
We have to
nacido,
see
por
how
ejemplo,
these
aquí,
tools that have come
lleguen a
from
nuestras
MIT
preparatorias, lleguen a
can
nuestros
reach
estudiantes.
our high schoolers.
Es más lento, es
So
costoso,
it's slower,
pero estamos
it's
pensando siempre
expensive, but
en
we're
todos,
also
¿no?
we're
Y
always
que-
thinking of
y que esa
everyone.
búsqueda de ese talento se dé
And
en toda la universidad.
We
¿no?
want to see that
Entonces,
talent in the
hemos
entire
hecho,
university.
muchísimos digamos, mecanismos para tratar de
We have
encontrar
used many
esas
mechanisms
inquietudes,
to try
pero
to
tratando de que
identify these
estas
concerns,
herramientas metodológicas
we also
o
want
laboratorios
to make sure
lleguen a
that these
todos, ¿no? Lento, Andrés, pero sí estamos intentando llegar a todos.
methodological tools reach all of our students.
I have a question. So I love the examples that you showed of the creativity and the improvisation. In Mexico, you see a lot of that here in this building. One of the differences that colleagues in Europe and Asia often mention with the kind of innovation culture of the US is it appears, at least to them, that there's almost a complete lack of fear of failure. You know, that people will work on a prototype and push it to the limit where it fails and then iterate, or if you're the CEO of a startup and you fail, sometimes you're more valuable depending on why you failed.
Yes.
I'm wondering what the tolerance in Mexico is for call it, you know, creative structured failure.
Sí, bueno, yo creo que sí, ese es el reto, ¿no?
Well,
Y
if
uno que
that's
me
the
faltó,
objective,
decir que
you know,
tienen nuestros estudiantes,
I think that
es algo que nos han dicho mucho, por ejemplo, aquí mismo en
something
el
that
MIT,
we lack among our students is
la
something that people here in
confianza,
MIT have
de
told
nuestros
me,
estudiantes,
is that
a veces les
our
falta
students
esa confianza de
sometimes
creer
are
en sí
lacking
mismos,
that
¿no?
trust,
Entonces,
that
tenemos la creatividad,
self-confidence to
tenemos
believe in themselves. So we
el
do have
recurso
this
humano,
creativity, we
pero
do
no
have
hemos
the
logrado
human
tener el
resources,
método
but we haven't been
para
able
poder
to
llevar
identify
las
the
fases para que esa
method
persona
with which we can
llegue a
reach
eso.
these
Y creo
people
que
so that
una de
these
las cosas
people
más
can reach those
importantes
objectives, can
también es
reach
eso, la
that goal.
confianza en nuestros
So I
mismos
think that
estudiantes.
it's
Tenemos estudiantes con muchísima
also has to
capacidad,
do with the
pero que justo
confidence
por
that we have
vivir
in our
en un
own
entorno
students. We think that
socioeconómico
they have the
difícil,
ability, but
complejo,
they're living in an
no
economic
creen que
situation
pueden,
that is
¿no?
very complex, very
hay que
difficult, and
empujarlos
they don't
a
think that
que
they
eso
can
suceda, ¿no? Entonces,
achieve that. So we have to
yo sigo
promote them, we
creyendo
have
que
to push
tenemos
them.
Lo más importante, que es
But we have the
es la
most
idea, es el
important
origen,
thing,
es la
which is the
creatividad.
idea,
Nos falta
the creativity.
sí, el presupuesto,
Now we,
la
of course,
estructura,
need the budget,
el
the
método
structure, the method,
para que eso eso se transforme.
so that
Pero
that
eso
can be
nos toca a
transformed.
nosotros, no a
But
ellos.
that's our
Lo
responsibility,
único
right?
que les
That's
toca a
not
ellos
their responsibility.
todavía
The
es
only
creer en
thing
sí
that they are
mismos,
responsible
y a nosotros
responsible for
ponerles los
is
medios
is
para
believing
que
in
esto
themselves. And
suceda.
now we need to give them
Pero
the
no sé si
space in which they
respondí.
can
No.
do all of this. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Te voy a preguntar en español. Bueno, en otras partes del mundo,
In other parts of the world, the collaboration between universities and the private sector sometimes is very complex. In Europe, in Spain, we're always talking about that collaboration. And I think the US has a more fluid collaboration. MIT is not a public university, but you see that the university works with and has applied research and works with other companies, I think in a very natural way. That's something that we're lacking in Europe and also in Latin America. We have to normalize that, and we have to help companies realize that universities are exactly the place that you have to do consulting. You know, maybe with that consultant from the university, they're not going to charge you $400,000 for the consultation, but rather $30,000. And so we need to promote that the industry should use universities for consulting, that universities should work with these companies to have a collaboration. So that's what I see, you know, in Latin America, in Spain. You know, we still need to have that collaboration between the public and the private sector. So what is your perspective on that? Well, we're just getting started. The University of Guadalajara had 9 researchers 30 years ago, and now we have 1,700 researchers. But all of this is very new. You know, we're still researching and doing research in public services. So many of our researchers are at the university because they have scholarships. So the university is still based on that paper that you're publishing. So the University of Guadalajara now wants to make that leap to technology. So we have these researchers who have the ability to research, to write papers, but they still don't have the ecosystem in which to transfer it to technology. So that's where we're headed. We already have an interdisciplinary research center that will allow us to collaborate with any researcher, with any company. Any company could have access to a team that is, you know, working on a certain research project, something that happens here so naturally. But in Mexico, we're still not paying researchers. So for me to be able to pay a researcher, if I pay them $3,000 to do a research project, then he or she loses the stimulus money that the government gives them. So the researcher prefers to get the stimulus. Got to Oxford in this tiny little car. And then the second slide was a Ferrari. And then he says, and now in this car, I came here to give you this talk. And so what we have to ask ourselves that if you are afraid that your researchers are going to be millionaires, then I have nothing to do here. Because it's not that we're afraid, it's that we can't make them millionaires. We have to change a lot of regulations, laws in order to take that step. So I feel like we're still in diapers when it comes to that type of transfer of technology. If I could pay a researcher, but I don't have this clear account of what the university is earning and what the private sector is earning, all of that is just so complicated. You know, we're afraid of mixing the private with the public sectors. I mean, that's a cultural problem, and that's the one that we're in. That's why the University of Guadalajara is now changing all of those rules. We're trying to pay our researchers without any problem, you know, so that everyone knows how much everybody else is making, and so that we're not afraid of becoming a millionaire. So I don't want to have that fear. I want my researchers to arrive in a Ferrari. That's why I'm here. That's why I want to collaborate with MIT. That's why I want to learn from you. But we're already changing. We're actually in the process of changing, of making that link with private initiative so that we can collaborate public resources with the private sector. So we have to also ensure that, you know, the private sector doesn't just look at us as consultants, but also collaborators. So we have to be able to achieve this despite our cultural hang-ups. Well, I have a question. You know, thank you very much for the presentation, but I think it's very interesting that you want to teach philosophy and ethics in all classes at the university. So would you consider making it, you know, like a required subject matter? Because, you know, that way everyone is learning all of this, because then, you know, we can ensure that even high school students have access to that, and not just those that go to university. Yes, I understand. So our high schools do include philosophy and these types of subject matters in their Common Core subjects. You know, of course, we should start in elementary school, right? We should be creating these ethical concepts, more morals, so that we can be more successful in the future. But we do from 15 to 18 years old, which is high school age. We do have these types of subjects. In Jalisco, it's obligatory to go to school until you're 18 years old. I know that other Mexican states, it's until 15 years old, which is middle school. But in Jalisco, it's 18 years old. So maybe we should start there. But either way, I think that we should visualize ethics, philosophy in high school. But to make it like a global subject, I think we do have to do this in undergraduate or graduate studies. You know, I think that you need that basic education before you can kind of delve into philosophy. It's not that we don't want to teach them philosophy or ethics, but rather to think about global problems. You should already have that philosophical and ethical background. But you're right, it should be included. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Traje café y galletas desde Guadalajara.
I did bring coffee and cookies from Guadalajara, so please enjoy.